Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Lords of Gaming YouTube channel. My name is Joseph Repko. I'm the senior editor at lordsofgaming.net, and today we have a very special guest in the realm with us today, Miss Kat Kingsley, the principal writer over at Digital Extremes. How are you today, ma'am?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing fine. Bit shell-shocked from some technical issues on my end, but all right.
Happens to the best of us.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So I kind of wanted to start this interview by kind of asking, what's your position at Digital Extremes? What do you do? And how long have you been at the company?
Sure. So I, as you know, am the principal writer here for Warframe, and what I do here, I actually have an interesting role because I was brought on specifically by Rebecca to sort of handle the design and the creation of the Kim texting system, which started off as the romance system. And with this new Techrot Encore, we're sort of telling new stories with the system in a fun and interesting way. So I've been with the company since December of 2023. I started basically the day before the launch of Whispers in the Walls.
Okay.
And for the year leading up to the the launch of 1999, I was the system designer and the project producer and the lead writer for the Kim system. And I've also handled a lot of the voice direction for the dialogue and script writing and stuff like that. So everybody in the writing team pitches in. And so a lot of the other writers did help with the writing of all of the characters. Like, for example, all of the Eleanor content was written by our lead writer, Adrian. Awie's dialogue was a group effort between Helen, Rebecca, and myself. So other people got in the mix. But sort of the main nuts and bolts was sort of what I was brought in to do.
Okay, and what was it like kind of working with some of the were you in contact with any of the voice actors directly, like Alpha Takahashi for Aoi, Ben Starr for Arthur? What was it kind of like working with them?
Absolutely fantastic. They are so much fun, and I kind of consider them like the third person in the dance. So you have the voice director, and then you have the script writer, and then you have the voice actor, and they bring so much life to the character that I really consider them like a full creative voice in creating this character, just as much as the script writer. Because, for example, Kevin, who plays Amir, he basically is Amir. Like, when he started talking the first time we met him in like the voice booth, I was like, holy crap, this guy is this character.
I love Amir.
He's so wonderful. And like being able to listen to him and just letting him riff and improv brings so much joy to the character and so much authenticity. The gentleman who plays Velimir we let him ad-lib in the booth because he just had so much fun with it, and we just sort of like let him run off with it. When you have a actor who's loving their character and really having so much fun with it, they really get to embody it. It brings so much more authenticity to it. And when I had the opportunity to listen to the actors and then write the dialogues and really be able to bring what those voice actors brought to the scripts into the romance system, I tried to do my best that I could to sort of match that.
Okay.
So it was a lot of fun.
That sounds like a lot of fun. Like I'm actually kind of surprised at seeing, kind of like the new Protoframes, Valamir's Frost, Minerva's Saren, Kaya's Nova, and obviously I kind of want to think of her. Kind of think of them as the headliner, Temple and Flare. But what made you all kind of land on those four specifically for kind of like the new Protoframes in the update?
They were interesting because as for like why we went with like Frost and Saren and Nova,
yeah,
I honestly don't know, because like those were decisions made in another department. I honestly don't know why they were picked. I just know that I was like, oh, those are some cool pieces of concept art. So we usually see them once the concept art is in drafted stage. So I don't know why we went with those choices. But Yeah, no, I fell in love with them as soon as I saw them, and I was like, they are going to be so much fun to write.
Oh yeah, my jaw was on the ground whenever I watched the trailer with the for Techrot Encore, like the rock music going. You have Velimir smoking a cigar, Minerva kind of being like, "Wait, we're going into a mall." That's kind of crazy, you know?
Yeah, and the animation team here works wonders, absolute wonders. The
Oh, yeah.
speed at which they can work is ungodly. Especially like in this industry, I have no idea how they pull it off. Like the animation team at Digital Extremes is they're wizards. I can't speak highly enough of them.
Okay. So as the principal writer, I kind of wanted to kind of dive into the personalities for each of the new Proto-frames if I can. Let's start with Valimir. What kind of made you guys land on like this military father figure?
So Velimir and Minerva are sort of the mom and dad characters, and they are Nessie's adopted parents. And so you have the story of mom and dad who have, separated, and it's your job to decide whether or not you want to get them back together or not. And so you have to sort of say, okay, what separated them? And now what is it about each other's personalities that really ticks them off? And so Velimir is both like the big goofy dad, but also military dad. So like his icon is the polar bear, and his username is Papa Polar, and he's the one trying to use emojis that's got the nose in it. He's like trying to be kind of
Trying
cool.
to be hip.
He's trying to be younger than he is, and he's trying to be cool with the kids, and no pun intended. And so he's trying to, because he was always the one trying to like play at Nessie's level, where Minerva was always much more the serious mom and the one who was always very on point in the militaristic sense. Gotcha. And so she was very much like, he was the fun dad and she was the very serious mom. And so being able to play those two personalities against each other is really fun. Their conversations, I don't like to play favorites, but I love all of the new conversations, but I think theirs kind of took it for me, just because it was hard to not just let them argue and remember to let the player get to make a choice.
Yeah, it's going to be a little awkward kind of stepping into those kind of conversations, but something I think everybody's going to be very much looking forward to, especially considering the angle with them being Nessie's adoptive parents, because I'm pretty sure that's going to be leading into possibly more of a story regarding Nessie and those two. So
we'll see. I have to plead the fifth on that one.
Of course. Can't blame me for trying to get a scoop, I guess. Okay, so let's go into Nova. What made you all land with Kaya and her personality and her backstory?
Kaya is just so much fun. When we saw her, I was like, oh, you know what character we haven't done yet is the annoying teenage Valley Girl-esque type of like character. And these characters in these Kim systems are really complicated to write. Branching narrative is an exponential math problem. And I remember when I was starting off researching this way back when, I was reading a bunch of articles and watching a bunch of YouTube videos by the people who did Baldur's Gate, because Larian Studios are the masters of branching narrative and have been for decades. And someone asked them, like, how do you do it? And they're just like, there's no trick, it's just hard work. And I was like, oh no. And so Rebecca actually is the one who masterminded Kaya's narrative. So she was the one who wrote Kaya for this. And so I give Reb full credit for her. And so she nailed the slightly eye-rolly, you're all so obnoxious teenager vibe. And her story, though, is one of someone who is just turning of age at the era where the internet was invented, and all of the mayhem that can cause. And so I think it's a really interesting story. And what we wanted to do with the new stories that we're introducing here is instead of being like, you had 6 romances and now here's 4 more that felt really identical, we wanted to say, well, here's 4 here's 4 characters, and here's some stories we can tell you with this system that you might not have expected. Or here's a way that you can interact with these characters in a unique way. And here's another way of telling their stories, or, another way of engaging with it that is unexpected. Because that's one thing that I think Warframe does really well, is it always tries to give you something new the next time. And so we might go back, but we never do the same beat again.
Yeah, because whenever I was looking at I was like the shift from like Whispers in the Walls in the Syndicate with the Cavia moving into the Hex with 1999, it was a much different feeling altogether. And whenever I heard that there was gonna be a romance system, I was like, Rebecca's playing a dangerous game with this stuff, because it opens the door for so many, and plus there's definitely certain corners in there that have kind of wanted to have relationships with Warframe. So it's kind of been like a little bit of wish fulfillment, I guess.
Yeah, and I think what I found fascinating was, and I lurk the Reddit and Tumblr, and we read it. And when the romance system was first announced, I saw it was like 75% people joking about it, and like 15% of people being like, "Oh God, please no," and then like 10 people being like, "Oh, okay, let them cook. Let's see what happens."
Let them cook.
But once it came out, the majority of people seemed to really enjoy it and seemed to really engage with it and like it for the story it was telling and engaged with the characters. And even the people that didn't engage with it for the romance were like, hey, this is actually telling us some interesting lore, and like it's filling blanks here. And I give so much credit to the Warframe community for going in with an open mind. And I don't know of any other game community that would have gone into something like that and gone, all right, now let's actually just see what they did. Because if you put something like this in, I don't know, Call of Duty, like they would have gone in, minds made up, and just memed it all the way through. I am so grateful to Warframe players for having gone in and been like, yeah, it's a romance system, but let's see what they actually did.
Yeah, because like as somebody who's been playing the game for a long time, been playing since 2016, I've seen Cetus and Fortuna get added. Like I've seen like the progression and what the syndicates are like and everything. So whenever I kind of heard about the romance system and how it was kind of like a daily messaging system and not just something tied to the story that you would have to make certain dialogue decisions with, having it be something that kind of finds its way into the daily cycle of a player, I think was also a very, very good choice to kind of ease players into it. Because everybody, whenever they log in, you have your sorties, your alerts and everything, but it's like, okay, let's talk to Quincy and see how they're doing,
Yeah. And when I saw people's primary complaints were like, I missed conversations because I ranked up too quickly, or why is the rum gone? Like, why have they just stopped texting? I want more. I'm just like, okay, I'll take those complaints. I'll take those. And
because I had actually locked myself out of Quincy because it's a very tough cookie. So it's kind of like you're kind of like walking on eggshells around him, basically.
That is, and that's the thing, is like when I was designing it, I wanted to give people, I wanted to make sure the choices mattered. I wanted to make sure that the choices were meaningful and that there was a sense of actual danger to it. Like I didn't want to talk down to the players, and I didn't want to treat the players with kid gloves.
Yeah.
So because of that, and because of the reset mechanism, like, yeah, you can screw up and you can lock yourself out of dating Eleanor, or you can lock yourself out of ever having a conversation with Quincy again, but you can reset the system and start over. And, because what I didn't want to do is what a lot of games I feel does, which is like, they don't want to make the players feel bad, so they knock the edges off and they give people a very neutered, very safe experience. And because of that, it feels very toothless. And you end up in these situations where, because of that, you end up with a lot of like emotional integrity that's lost. And I don't know, it just didn't feel Like, then everything just feels shallow. You can't go as deep in some areas because the intensity is gone, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And I guess that kind of leads me into one of my other questions regarding like the improvements to the Kim system. Obviously, we saw with, I think it was the recent update with like Lava's Prime or something, not Lava's Prime, wow, Rhino Heirloom, where we saw like kind of like an improvement to the Kim system, allowing more conversations. But what more can the players expect whenever it comes to Techrot Encore?
So what happened with the Rhino was we unlocked unplayed rank 5 systems. So
Okay.
a little bit of a background peek into how the system works is that all of the conversations are sorted into rank buckets in the same way you can think of a syndicate bucket. And the primary hacks, like the ones that you know, are you have certain numbers of conversations in each bucket. Like say there are 4 in rank 1 and 5 in rank 2 and 6 in rank 3, yada yada. As you go through, it draws a certain number randomly from each bucket. And then it goes, do you have enough chemistry to move on? Yes, great. And then it will rank you up to the next level. So that means, say that you have a minimum or a minimum number of 2 conversations you need to play in rank 1. You will miss 2 of those conversations because you only need 2, but there are 4 that are possible. So one of the things that we're adding is this play all feature.
Okay.
In Echoes, which means that instead of only playing the 2 conversations before we move you on, we will play all 4.
Oh.
And then we will check for chemistry. And if we say you have enough chemistry to move on, great, we'll move you on to rank 2. Now, what you do within those conversations is still up to you. But you will play all 4 conversations, and then you'll move on to rank 2, and then you'll play those 5 conversations, and then you'll move on to rank 3, and so on. Because when we balanced the system originally, we accounted for various and sundry things that then got changed, yada yada. And we ended up having to rebalance it for players who didn't want to engage with the system as much. So we had to make it rain chemistry like crazy. And so people were all speed rushing the system. So in the original intent, people were supposed to get like 21, 22 conversations before the players moved into the back room. Or sorry, before the Proto-frames move in with the player. Now it's like the minimum 13 is what most people are getting.
Okay.
Which is why it feels really short. So by toggling this switch, people will get all of the, roughly, it varies by character, like 35 conversations before the Proto-frame moves in. It means it will take longer for them to move into the back room, but you will get all of the content before that happens.
Okay, and one of my follow-up questions to all that, like we were talking about, like, you know, locking ourselves out of conversations. When it comes to the new Proto-frames, and asking this before I talk about Flare, because, you know, they're the headliner of the update, basically, like the new Warframe, new Proto-frame, everything. Whenever it comes to, I heard on the dev stream that there's going to be, like, you know, dedicated arcs to every new Proto-frame. Is there a way of kind of like locking yourself out of completing those arcs as well, considering what happens with somebody like Quincy or Arthur or Letty? I think they're kind of like the harder ones to stay on the good side for.
It depends on what you consider locking yourself out and what you consider success.
Okay.
So I'm gonna be really ephemeral.
Okay, I got you.
So it depends on what you consider locking yourself out. Some yes, some no, some depends on your determination of what success is. But you will always be able to reset.
Okay, so that's a good answer, I think. I'm not going to pry further. So let's kind of talk about Flare and Temple. Let's go into what kind of, like, I heard on the dev stream also that it's kind of like 7 years in the making to make Flare and Temple. So I kind of wanted to know, like, what was it like writing for them and bringing them into the fold, basically?
They are a fascinating character. And they were a lot of fun to write because, and I can't really spoiler a lot of it because there's so much to surprise there. But their story, I think, is going to be the most surprising and the most tonally different from the other hacks so far.
Yeah, because I heard whenever I came to the story, like I was actually taking it back. Like whenever I read the initial advertisement for Devstream 185, I was kind of thinking like, oh, Temple and 4 other Proto-Frames. I thought like, okay, maybe there's a band involved, like a full-on band, and the new Proto-Frame is going to be like Temple's band and something wacky like that. But learning that their band was killed by, I think it was Victor and the Scaldra, and then you're kind of having to be there to kind of like console them, or what's our role there?
They've got a lot to work through. Let's say that the death of their band is the least of their problems right now, and their guitar is actually the bigger problem that you have to contend with. So that's all I'm going to say, because the rest of it is for the player to discover. And it's, yeah, I don't want to spoiler it because I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And it is very, very tonally different, which is one of the things that we really wanted to play with this update, is what other kinds of stories can we tell with this Kim system?
Of course, and obviously, I think like they said that Lizzie's going to have their own voice and everything, so it's kind of like you're having to talk to an actual glam rock, rock star, and then also factor in that they're probably talking to a living, breathing thing, and it's kind of going to be interesting.
It's going to be fascinating.
I cannot imagine how that went from concept all the way to how it ended.
It was definitely one that until, we'll put it this way, until Rebecca strung a series of words together in conversation for me, I was like, oh, okay, now I can write this. And until that happened, it was very, like, nobody wanted to tackle it. And then I was like, I will say it's taken a little bit more of a horror bend than a lot of.
Oh, okay.
So once that happened, I was a little bit more like, now you're speaking my language. And I was like, all right, let's do this. And so it's a little bit spookier than the other ones. And so that's all I'll give you. And I'll stop in the line there.
I gotcha. It's like, it does seem like a very tall order considering I think whenever it came to Jade, how they kind of had like the pregnant Warframe concept, and then having to figure out how to really implement that into Jade Shadows, and I thought that was excellently done. Like one of the
that was the first quest I worked on here.
Oh no! Oh, that's awesome.
I remember I was like just getting started, and they were like, "Hi, we're gonna have you work on Jade Shadows. This Warframe is pregnant," and I was like, "That's great. What's a Warframe?" It was.
They had to introduce you to everything, like Ballast and everything else, like the lore involving what happened to Warframes before.
The really good news is that I'm a romance author, which is actually, so I've worked in video games for a very long time, but my side gig has been being an author. And in my Discord, which is where my fans hang out, many of my mods are like hardcore Warframe players, and so I'd known about Warframe, like Ed's like seen all the screenshots. And when I got hired, I was like, "Hey guys, I'm gonna need you to speed run me in the next 2 weeks." Okay, thanks.
It's like, okay, let me see your homework, but I'm gonna change up just to make sure that no one's.
So that's kind of how that went down. But
okay, and just kind of wrap it up. Like we have a couple minutes left, but I kind of wanted to just, like considering you're part of, Digital Extremes and the Warframe team now, like, whenever it comes to your position as the principal writer, what's kind of like your most favorite thing about the job? Like every day that you wake up, you're like, okay, I can't wait to start doing this. Like, obviously, I know you can't tell me anything that's going on behind the scenes, but like, what's kind of that thing that keeps your drive going, basically?
Honestly, I think my favorite thing about working on Warframe is that anything is on the table and everything can happen next. It is literally the most wild game I've ever worked on. And it is a yes and game with the story and the community. and the joy that the people that at Digital Extremes have making the game, like it is some of the most wonderful people I've ever worked with. And I love the game. I log in daily to play because I've gotten addicted to the game, and I love
It'll
playing.
do that to you.
Yeah, and I love playing with people that just randomly in the game. And like I've loved the community. I love the people that I work with. It's just such a joyful thing to be able to work on day to day. And so
You love seeing people just kind of like running around as one of the Warframes, like owie.
Yeah, and listening to the lines that I wrote come out of their faces, it's so much fun. And to be able to contribute to that is an honor and a joy. And it's something not a lot of people get to do with their day. And I think that is something I'm perpetually grateful for. So.
And the same goes for me, being able to sit down with you and kind of talk about everything going on with Techrot Encore, kind of the encore of a lifetime, if you will. I know, kind of. But thank you very much for your time today, and I want to say thank you to everybody that's going to be watching this video on YouTube. I hope everybody just enjoys Techrot Encore, and I can't wait to see what you have involved next, because I think you've been doing an incredible job.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.